Hi, everyone. I'll give Diana Kleine another introduction. So she is from CoralWatch, and she's going to give us basically an introduction to what CoralWatch is, what they do, I guess a bit of the history and stuff they're going to start working on. I think they're expanding, starting some cool new stuff. So thank you for talking to us.
Thanks for introducing. Yeah, so I'm Diana. So CoralWatch basically has been at UQ for 21 years already. And we were in the Queensland Brain Institute. And last year we moved to the School of Biology under the Centre of Marine Science. And yeah, we're very excited to be here. We thought this would be a great opportunity to tell you a bit more about what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and yeah, about the Coral Health Chart. So who has seen the Coral Health Chart? Who is familiar? So almost everyone. That's great. So I can go now. So the Coral Health Chart is a citizen science tool. So we work with citizen scientists plus many other people. And it was developed in 2002 really as a response to a big bleaching event on Heron Island, where a couple of scientists, Ophir Goldberg, Uli Siebeck and Justin Marshall, felt a bit hopeless, as in it was still quite a new thing, the coral bleaching, and there were so many places where coral bleaching was happening, but there were only so many scientists. So can we perhaps think of something, a simple tool that anyone can use so we can increase our field sites and get lots of data on coral bleaching? So that became the Coral Health Chart, and it's a very simple tool. It basically has a 6-point scale, and the brightness corresponds with the symbiotic algae that lives in the coral, the zooxanthellae. So the darker the color, the healthier the coral, and light might be potentially bleached. So it's a peer-reviewed method. We published a couple of papers, and it was taken on board by many other scientists. So most scientists use it as an additional method to their own fieldwork. We don't see the data, unfortunately. They use that for their own records, but we do get cited in many papers. And Aims, for example, uses it for their long-term monitoring project, and they describe it as a very handy tool that they use in the field and also in the lab to basically validate and assess coral bleaching. And as you can see, they amended the chart a bit to their liking, but that's all good. So the chart also gets used in management for environmental impact monitoring. So basically, when it has been used when there was the dredging of several harbors in Hong Kong and also in Perth, in Fremantle, where teams would go out and check on the corals, and if the color scores would change by 2, so they would drop, scores clearly indicate stress, they would adjust the dredging. Also, this is, of course, data that doesn't appear on our database because it's confidential data. We know from reports that it's used for these purposes. So CoralWatch started in 2002, really with the development of the Coral Health Chart on Heron Island, lots of lab and field experiments, and it has grown since, and we have now got outreach in 80 countries. So we have a big global database with the Atlas of Living Australia, and we have data from 18 countries, which doesn't mean that from every country we have amazing data sets, but that varies, of course. Apart from our data, we have developed a lot of other materials over the years to raise awareness. So we published the book Coral Reefs and Climate Change, and that's actually when I started working for CoralWatch. And then we also organize a lot of workshops, community outreach, and education workshop for teachers, but also students. So the CoralWatch team. So the founder of CoralWatch is Professor Justin Marshall. He retired end of last year. And Mike Node has kindly taken us on board and is academic supervisor for CoralWatch. I'm project manager. I've been working for CoralWatch 16 years now. And we also have Karen on the team, Karen Johnson, who organizes a lot of events. And up till only a month ago, Sophie Goskowski-Pope was with us for social media and data outreach. But she has won an amazing award, the big Rolex award. So she's traveling the world now, and we made sure she has coral health charts in her backpack and everywhere. She has been replaced by Marta Panera. She was studied at JCU, done a lot of soft coral research, and has just started. Unfortunately, Karen and Marta can't be here today. So even though we are a very small team in the office and we're actually running on just over 1 FTE, we have a lot of outreach. And this is really also thanks to our ambassadors. So CoralWatch runs a yearly ambassador program. We've done this for 6 years now, where we take people for a 5-day workshop to Heron Island, and they become trained volunteers. People have to apply for this. You can also apply. And you apply with projects. So you think of something, how you want to help reefs. And that's, I think, the reason it works so well, because everybody has their own project and it's about people's own passion, how you want to help reefs. So our ambassador team is a very broad team of people, all walks of life, all different skill sets, all different expertise and circles of influence. And our youngest ambassador is only 9 years old, Elijah Richardson. He has been a lot in the news. We'll come to that later. And our oldest ambassador is 71, and that's David Capel. And lots of people in between. And then we have all these different amazing projects that people work on to raise awareness about coral reefs. And one of them is our artist, Nadine Small. And she is currently creating an installation of 1,000 coral polyps from plastic water bottles that will be on display at the Currumbin Swells Art Festival in September. And she, as part of it, she organizes workshops where she first does a little presentation, talks about the reef and why we should care for the reef, and then people can help to create this artwork. So we have our team in the office, we have our team of ambassadors, and we have lots of citizen scientists all over the world that help to collect data. So if we look at our data contributors, this is our global groups that are involved. And the biggest groups are dive centers and schools, universities, and conservation groups. With those conservation groups, these are like a lot of this, like GVI, Coral Cape Conservation. So it's those volunteer organizations that include CoralWatch with our reef monitoring. And as I mentioned before, quite little amount of scientist research involved, but this is just a preview of what's available in our database. The number of tourists is quite low, and as you can imagine, this is citizen science data. So of course, there will be errors in our data and there will be data gaps. But the biggest groups are actually more trained volunteers, and they collect a lot of data, so they know very well what they're doing, and the number of tourists is actually relatively small. If we look at Australia, then we make a big jump with schools and universities, and our dive centers drop to almost zero. we're not sure what's happening in Australia why we can't get our dive centres on board. Globally, we have so many, and in Australia, it's very little dive centres that include CoralWatch. And if you have any ins or outs or any ways to help us to get more dive centres on board, we would love to hear from you. The reason why we have so many schools and universities involved is because we do a lot of workshops for teachers and students. Globally, back to the dive centres, when we started, we had a big program with Project Aware from Cali, where we had 1,300 CoralWatch operators worldwide. So they promoted the program really well, and that's why we still actually work with a lot of dive centres overseas. So our global database is with the Atlas of Living Australia since 2 years. And that's fantastic. Great support from CSRO. It's very easy to upload data. It's very easy to find data. It has a whole filter function. You can just select whatever you're interested in, whatever country, whatever groups or researchers or reefs, and download the data in Excel, and it's yours. So it's open access, public available to anyone. It does have functionality as in photo upload of reef, but also photo upload of species. And you can identify the species as well if you know them. So currently we have data of over 2,000 reefs and over 16,000 surveys. And our biggest contributors are actually in Honduras, when we utilize us. So we have a big global network, outreach in 137 countries, so that's where members come from, and lots of social media followers. The reason why that is possible, that we work with so many people, is that it's so simple. So we have thought many times if we would have to add something to the Coral Health Chart, because sometimes feedback we receive was that it's too simple. We don't think it's too simple. Because it's simple, anyone can do it. And it's really just comparing colours of the chart with colours on the reef, and that can help us to indicate coral bleaching. So basically, people read the instructions on the back, and they have the little data card. They can do it. We did make the instructions available in 13 languages, so there wouldn't be a barrier in that sense, and that's all online. And basically what we ask people to do, very simple, it's just recording within one coral colony, the lightest color and the darkest, and the average is actually the result that counts. And then we look at coral types. These are quite simple to identify. You can go for the lookalike, branching, plate, boulder, and then these are hard corals, and then we have soft corals. And that might be one that could be a bit more complicated if you are less familiar with marine stuff, but still something that people can identify. So basically, we ask people to record about 20 corals, anywhere between 10 and 20 is great, and upload this to our database with the Atlas of Living Australia. So the chart can measure various stages of bleaching and also recovery. So there will be people that will maybe measure coral disease, so which is also creating white patches on the reef. There might be people who look at the impact of crown of thorn starfish. We don't see that as an issue because it means there's something wrong on the reef. White color on the reef is in general not a good sign. There are corals that are lighter in color, and that's why it's important to do regular surveys. But basically, when people experience something different going on the reef and they find a lot of white coral, we ask them to report this to local marine park authorities. we can't really do something. It's not up to us to say to Indonesian government, well, you have to close your dive sites or something. So we try to create a bit of ownership and a bit of responsibility with our users to also take the next step. Because the coral health chart is of course really just a first indicator of something is going on at the reef, and then hopefully more research can follow. So the good thing is that corals can recover from bleaching. It is a stress response, as we probably all know, from warm seawater temperature. The coral gets stressed, it releases its zooxanthellae, and we just look at the white skeleton. But this coral is still alive. You can see the coral tissue. And if the water temperature would drop again, the coral can actually recover. But this loop, how many times can you do this? And this is something that we have seen in the last couple of years, that we get so many bleaching events, and especially like 2016 was a really severe mass global bleaching event. And then in 2017, the reef bleached again. So corals that did not even get a chance to recover get hit again. So this is really a difficult issue. And you see also on the maps that some areas have been hit several times. The southern Great Barrier Reef has been spared from most bleaching events, but also there, of course, we do see impact. And then this year is not looking good either, because we are in an El Nino year, which will mean we get warm seawater temperature again. So the mass bleaching events is really related to climate change. There is the increase in carbon emissions have caused global warming, has caused our sea temperature to be much more warmer than it ever has been. And we see more and more bleaching events and more severe. So what do we do with CoralWatch? So we really try to increase the understanding of coral reefs, coral bleaching, and climate change. And we're always surprised how many people actually don't even make the link between climate change and impact on reefs. And the concept that you can even save reefs from harm by doing lots of little things in your daily life is not something that everybody is on board with. Well, for us, that might be a very normal thing. When we talk to people, we find that is not something you can just take for granted that everybody knows. So we really try to provide solutions, what you can do to help reefs. And that one of the solutions can be by actively getting involved and help collect data on the reef. But if you're not a swimmer, then maybe go for the Save Reef from Home option. And so we try to motivate behavior change and raise awareness about the importance of reefs. And even the importance of reefs, if you ask people, a lot of them will say, oh, it's a very important habitat for fish and other creatures. Yes, it is, but the link that there is, like the value of the Great Barrier Reef, and that there is 69,000 people, jobs basically related directly to the reef, is something people don't think about. So it's very important that we protect our reefs and that we look into the future. So we do this through monitoring, education, and outreach. And with the monitoring, especially the group of citizen scientists that are maybe just visiting Australia and they get to see this coral health chart, and they maybe do this only once, and they might not even upload the data, we still feel like we win, because we are raising awareness, and by doing something and looking and holding, have a close-up look at corals and hold this chart next to a coral, there is better understanding than when you would just tell people about coral bleaching and it's a concept that is far from home and they don't get it. So just this educational experience on the reef can already gain a lot of racing awareness. We do a lot of education, a lot of school groups, a lot of teachers that we work with. We also developed a lot of curriculum linked materials for grade 1, 4, 7, 11 and 12. This has all happened over the years. Everybody can download it for free, but we do sell like education packages for school groups that they can take out to the field. And actually in Queensland, there is about 40 schools that do regular surveys on the reef for CoralWatch, which is fantastic. So already mentioned a bit about our ambassadors in action, just to give you an idea what they do and how much we do. Basically, we have events every month. Last weekend was World Science Festival. We had our big year in 2019, just before COVID hit. And basically in a year's time, we organized about 77 events and we talked to over 11,000 people. So this is face to face. So basically our ambassadors give us feedback, what they have done. And if there's 250 people at an event, how many people did you talk to? And that's the number that counts. And that's how we got to 11,000 people. So the outreach is quite big. We've done some things a bit different. And one of them was a real fun event for National Science Week in 2018, where we went on a Corals in the Outback tour. And we rented a car and we went with lots of materials, 10 days in the Outback, and asked children, where is the Great Barrier Reef? Not quite. We had a classroom set of 20 virtual reality sets where we could take kids on an expedition on an iPad, traveling the world and looking at corals all over the world and learning about coral reefs. We organized Chasing Coral film sessions. We were a bit nervous about going to the Outback. We thought they have their own difficulties. So who are we coming to tell you have to protect the Great Barrier Reef? But the response was so positive, and especially schools were really thankful for bringing expertise and experience for kids basically that don't really have that kind of exposure normally to something like this. It was a fantastic trip. Something else that we did was very different. We did this 2 years ago. We did a big social media campaign to raise awareness about the Great Barrier Reef, where we asked Billie Eilish to lend her song Ocean Eyes to us to get more eyes on the reef. Our big media star was this young ambassador, Elijah Richardson. He was in the news, he was in the project, he was in National Geographic, all over the place. And basically together with 20 people in the Bundaberg area that were willing to lend their face to this campaign. And our whole campaign went really viral when Billie Eilish also came to Australia. Yeah, so we did manage to get official permission to use this song for a year, which is now finished. So I'm allowed to use this internal, but not online anymore. And we did try to get to Kit Harington with the watches on the wall. You know, summer, winter is coming, and for us, summer is coming, and we know what's coming with it. And the same with Robert De Niro, we tried to approach him with the watches and Watch Me and in the parents. Unfortunately, we didn't get to them, but we were very proud that we did get to Billie Eilish and managed to get this song and outreach on social media. So future projects to finish off. Recently Noah was here and did a talk And we actually have followed up with them a few times. We had some meetings, and they are, especially now that El Nino is it's an El Nino year, they are really keen to get CoralWatch data as about basically to validate their bleaching alerts. So we're working on with them now to find the best ways of getting data to them. I did mention we are with the Atlas of Living Australia for 2 years now. It's fantastic. It's a great support, but we are still missing a bit of data visualization and easy ways to identify where bleaching is happening in our database. So we're working on a data project, and we're actually looking for a student that potentially could help us to maybe write a script to visualize better and pick up easier where bleaching is happening in the big total global database. Other things we're doing is we published this book already like 2009, but we feel like it needs a follow-up because the biggest threat to reefs is climate change, and the biggest solution is really reducing carbon emissions. So the follow-up will be coral reefs and climate change. What can I do? This won't be just a book. It's going to be a program that includes workshops, a lot of online interactive components to learn. It's not just about telling people, oh, you should do this, should do that. No, it will be really about like, what is that going to achieve if you do that, and how can you really make a difference? And this will link into social science, where we are currently looking for funding to support a social science project where we can look at the impact that we are currently making, what works well, what can we change, so how can we motivate people better to change behavior, because we are convinced that is the biggest thing we can do to save reefs for the future. So one of the things we do is we create a lot of materials. So I brought these fact sheets. So we give this out a lot at events. So it's about stats on the Great Barrier Reef, but then the back page will be about what can I do. And our What Can I Do program is based on 7 pillars of change, which is food, waste, energy, transport, activism, rewilding, and education. And here we just give simple ideas that make a big change. And that's what we think you can do. And what can you do is talk to people. And already you mentioned, Leslie, that you sent several people to CoralWatch. Please do. And if you know anyone, or if you are keen to get more involved with CoralWatch, please let us know. We will have another ambassador workshop in February next year. Who doesn't want to go to Heron Island and becomes an ambassador for the reef through CoralWatch? And perhaps try to talk to somebody who's maybe a bit less climate conscious, because of course that's something that we experience a lot. You organize events, and who's coming there? People that are already on board. Who do you want to come? People that are maybe not that aware of change and how you can make a change that much. And of course, we also get the occasional climate change denier, but luckily not too much. Thank you so much for coming to my talk, and I'd love to take any questions if you have questions.
I have a question. Yeah. Thanks for that. Apart from the ambassador training, do you have any sort of event or way of like linking people together to go, like just citizens, volunteers, or whatever, to go do surveys, or is that really, do you leave that up to the dive center or the school or whatever?
We are trying to promote that. We just actually started a CoralWatch community Facebook page where anyone can join and people can talk to each other and link. But that's still a fairly new thing. But yeah, people can always approach us. but we don't really regulate a lot of events because it's a do-it-yourself method. Anyone can take it on board, and anyone can also take it to any level as they want. You can do surveys in different ways, and yeah, but there is that platform of opportunities to talk to each other, and people can always talk to us.
Thanks, Diana. That was great, and I really like that it's not just the science bit, but there's all the outreach to go with it, and you're educating people. And the last part you said about getting people who are less climate conscious on board, I was really curious as to one, how much you've personally in secondhand knowledge of people interacting with those kind of people, climate deniers, and do you get those people? Because I guess optimally what you really want is a room full of climate deniers that you can change their minds, but that's probably tricky. And also how much of the people that you get are because I imagine there's a lot of divers, of course, mainly divers and kind of already everywhere. So they are you getting any climate deniers, and how well is the program working? Maybe nudging another bit.
Yeah, well, we've done a Chasing Coral presentation in Mount Isa. We didn't get a lot of people there who are adventurous, unfortunately. We did get a lot of people at our library event in the afternoon, families, and they were very open. During our Corals in the Outback tour, there was only one person who tried to give a fact sheet, and he just turned around, but he didn't go into any bad conversation. So it's always hard to get to the non-converted. We have run events where we managed to talk to those people, basically. And one of them was, for example, at the UQ swimming pool, where we organized an event. We didn't even think about it that much beforehand. It was a 24-hour for the Love of the Reef event, and we had stalls and activities. And on Saturday morning, all these families rock up to do swimming lessons with the kids, and the parents are just waiting for half an hour to for their kids. And this was the perfect opportunity to sell them a raffle ticket for the reef and to talk to them about the reef. And that was really, like, they hadn't chosen to go there, they were suddenly immersed in it, and that was great. So that's the same if you go to market stall, you might get people that are not necessarily coming for you. But there is a lot of events like such as World Science Festival. Of course, people that are into science and love these kind of things, they go there. But at the same time, there's still a lot of people that don't know about CoralWatch. They don't know what they can do, and that is especially what we find. A lot of people don't know what they can do. We feel good like, I don't know, like, so, and that's what we're trying to promote. There is lots that everyone can do, and that's really the way forward. So yeah.
So the data that's coming into you, I guess I can see that not everyone chooses, or maybe they lose their card, or they aren't actually following through and sending the data. When they do send it, are they sending are they giving a GPS coordinate frequently? Like, is that happening a lot, or are you guys just having to roughly place based on like the name of the beach, or they give like a city that they're located close to?
Yeah.
How georeferenced is it? Yeah.
Well, so basically on the data slate, we ask for GPS coordinates, but the over 2,000 reefs that have been monitored before, they all have the coordinates. You just start typing the name of your reef and it will pop up, and the coordinates pop up automatically.
So they're placing it on their end, they're entering the data, they can put it at the reef.
Yeah, so when you enter the data, you can basically search for your reef. If your reef is not in the system, you send an email to us. This is a big change, and we enter it for you. This is a big change we made when we moved to the Atlas, because our biggest error in our database was GPS locations. And I'm convinced people really trying to do their best, but we had reefs in the middle of the desert, and that didn't work. So now we take that control of the GPS coordinates and make sure that works. And then our very frequent users have access and they can add their own reefs. So people that know what they're doing. Yeah, but that was a big error and a big change. That was actually the biggest error in the database.
Seems like a challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, that's interesting, thanks.
Yeah, it's
Really, really cool. I wish I'd known about it 2 months ago. We were doing some work in Somalia and it was, yeah, could have been more strategical. But what I wanted to know is, do EIAs reflect it all in your contribution, or do you get none of that data, like environmental impact assessments?
we don't get that data.
No.
No, because it's confidential. So yeah, whenever there is companies that are involved with, you know, assessing health as a result of industry or something, that's something we don't get to see. So the bulk of our database is from citizen scientists. I would say 95% of the global database is from citizen science. But we know there is much more that is done with the chart than just our database.
Yeah, a lot of the other work I've done when we finish the project, like at least for species, they're uploaded to iNaturalist, so it does contribute. So it's sad that that doesn't happen
Yeah, it would be
in
good.
this case.
Yes, but unfortunately, that's not happening. And it could be that that would happen more in the future, because we can, now that we're part of the atlas, we can also add all our coral species, which of course we don't expect citizen scientists to necessarily do, but that's where you can take it to your own level if you're, because we also promote that people use other methods than just random, because most people use random, but you can of course do transect surveys, or you can do permanent transects. So where we keep on looking at the same coral over time, which we do on heron and on Lady Elliot. And that's where photo upload and species becomes more important. Any other questions?
Last one.
Yeah.
So I was wondering about the applications of the data. Have there been, so no, you mentioned NOAA is going to use your data or start presenting it. But yeah, were there other big scientific outputs that came as a result of your data that used your data to make certain findings?
Yeah, so there are examples, for example, in 2010, when there was severe bleaching in Thailand. The Coral Health Chart also picked this up, and there was a management response that they closed 21 dive sites. A lot of our data gets used actually by schools as student projects. We analyze quite a lot of our data. We wish we can do more, but we do create community report cards. So we are not so much focused on publishing scientific papers, because we want to talk to the public, and we think the public doesn't really read scientific papers. So instead of that, we create community report cards that are easy to understand for people, where we show from a certain area what data has been collected, what results are. And we also have done this for our big data contributors that use, for example, Utila. They make it part of their dive master program. So we have analyzed all their data, put that in a PowerPoint so they can include it in their presentation. So that's more the kind of data outputs that we do. And then we do see papers appearing where CoralWatch data has been used, but it's more the method that gets used.
It is CoralWatch data all publicly available?
Yeah, you can download it right now. Whatever you're interested in, you can download the whole database, or you can just download a country or a reef, and you just get it in Excel and it's yours.